Live in 2 seconds. Please, dear God. Hey, Jane Unchained live talk with the extraordinary Leslie Durso. She is the mistress of gorgeous vegan food done in a way that really changes the culture. Leslie, you have so many projects. I just want to put up one shot of you working here, creating amazing vegan dishes. You look like a scientist, but you're an artist. Tell us about the many things you're doing to help the world transition to plant-based so that we can all survive.
Well, thank you. And it's because I used to play a scientist on TV. But I'm a vegan chef. I do a hotel and restaurant consulting with properties all over the world. My flagship property being the Four Seasons down in Punta Mita, Mexico, which is one of my favorite spots on earth. We have over 150 of my plant-based recipes on that property. So you could literally come for a month and never eat the same thing twice.
Wow. And I'm looking at some of the incredible dishes that you put together. Where did you learn to be such an incredible chef? Because it's one thing to love vegan food. It's quite another to be able to dress it up where the Four Seasons says, yeah, you can redo our menu.
Oh, well, thank you, first of all. But I'm Italian. So I always say I grew up in the kitchen, and the first things that I learned how to make were really complex. I remember being a little kid with a towel tied around my waist, rolling out pasta dough and pizza dough with my great grandmother. So I think that was a great background to start with. And then there were no vegan culinary schools when I decided to become a chef. So instead I bought plane tickets and traveled the world and worked in kitchens all over the place and just absorbed as much knowledge as I possibly could and still continue to. That's one of my favorite things when I travel is to meet local people and especially grandmothers, because they always have the secrets, and just spend as much time as I can learning everything there is to know about vegetables. There's over 25,000 edible plants on earth. So I feel like it's my mission to know something about at least most of them.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, we are in this terrible time, and it's more important than ever for people to go plant-based. We know what's happening with these slaughterhouses, that people are actually dying when they go to work to kill animals for people to eat, which in turn creates heart disease. And processed meat is officially a carcinogen, according to the World Health Organization. Not to mention that animal agriculture is a leading cause of climate change, habitat destruction, water pollution, wildlife extinction, and human world hunger, because animals eat far more than they produce as meat or dairy. Those are the serious issues behind your amazing work to change the culture by starting with people who go to these top resorts. Why is it more important than ever today during this crisis for us to transition to plant-based, Leslie?
Well, oh my gosh, for so many reasons, and most of them. I mean, if you're looking at it purely from a health standpoint, I mean, a plant-based diet can help aid and boost your immune system so greatly so that you're far more likely to pick up any of these bacteria and viruses in the beginning to begin with. And then from an environmental standpoint, what is happening out there is just horrible. And you can see from the data that every single one of the last pandemics that we've had over the last 100 years have all been caused by people eating animals. And at some point, we just have to realize they're not here for us to consume. They're here inhabiting the earth just like us, hanging out, just trying to do the best they can. And it's not right for us to put ourselves above them in the food chain.
Yes, and it's while we're killing them, they are killing us. There are so many people who really don't want to make the connection because they're conditioned. And even though it's very unnatural when you think about it for humans to drink the breast milk of a cow, they're conditioned to associate that with goodness and even things like patriotism, upward mobility, family values. But that's all basically a marketing, as Arnold Schwarzenegger said in the incredible film, The Game Changers, all of that stuff, equating meat with masculinity, dairy with femininity, it's just marketing. That the systems are seeing big cracks, do you think that people are waking up when they read stories day after day about slaughterhouse workers basically saying, I'm being to be forced to go into a slaughterhouse where so many hundreds of people have tested positive for COVID-19, where some have died, and it's not worth my life so somebody can eat a meat hamburger when there are vegan hamburgers like Beyond Meat available?
Absolutely. And I've always said that animal rights is a human rights issue as well. The way that the slaughterhouse workers have been treated forever has been really horrible. It has, I believe, the highest percentage of slaughterhouse workers become domestically violent. They do other violent crimes, and it's psychological. I mean, these poor people are meant and asked to sit and kill all day long. And of course, it desensitizes them to death and dying, and their own safety is at risk. I mean, they have one of the highest rates of job injuries. It's a horrible situation to begin with, and then throw coronavirus into this, and the animals are getting it, the people are getting it. Who's to say that these diseases can't be transmitted through eating? I mean, we already found out that it started with a human eating a bat. But beyond COVID, I think the statistic is 60% of pig slaughters have pneumonia. What is that doing when people consume that? There's another study being done right now about cows and cancer, and how it's perfectly legal to slaughter a cow that has cancer, cut the tumors off of it, and serve the rest of it. I mean, who's to say that we're not getting those cancer cells, or not we, you and me, but who's to say people that are consuming those animals are not getting those cancer cells in them? And we don't know what that's doing to our systems. And there haven't been official studies yet on that stuff. And I hope that there are soon, because I think people are really going to wake up and see that it's a very, very dangerous thing. People ask all the time, why is there so much more cancer than there was 100 years ago? Why is there so much more diabetes? Why is there so much more heart disease? If you look at all of these things, it all goes back to consuming animals.
And what you're doing, I think, is so extraordinary, because everybody does different pieces of the puzzle. I've been a journalist and a writer for 38 years, 40 years. So I'm using journalistic skills to get the word out.
It's not possible, because you're not that old.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not. You don't over here, right?
Yeah, no, I'm about to turn 65, but
diet, right?
but it's also my immaturity that keeps me young. But so I use my journalism skills. You use your skills as, first of all, an incredible connector. And I've seen it firsthand when you were doing Vegan Lady Boss, connecting all these high-powered vegan women, inviting them over to your home, and everybody working together. Because I went to one of your events, able to connect with an amazing vegan cheesemaker from Spain, España, who had just arrived here, and we ended up using her vegan cheeses for parties. I mean, you did a lot to connect people with that. Can you tell us a little bit about the Vegan Lady Boss? I don't know if it's still going, but it was very powerful.
Sure. Well, we've moved it to digital now that the pandemic is going on, but it was started by Liz D in New York, one of my favorite people and favorite vegan lady bosses. And she just thought that, we really needed a community, because there's nothing more powerful than a group of women when they get together. And so it's just a group of women that we meet monthly or bi-monthly, whenever our schedules allow. And we come together and see how we can support each other in the industry and what we're all doing. And it's a good way to share and help lift people up.
Yes, it is. And I hope that even though it's virtual now, that it continues if we get to a normal or a new normal. But the other thing that you're doing that I think is so crucial is that, there are social media influencers, and then there are cultural influencers, often the people at the very top, the people who decide what the fashion trends are, what the food trends are, what the hot hotels are, the hot resorts. Those are people who then go back to wherever they are, Beverly Hills or Park Avenue, and they say, hey, you know what? for this dinner party, why don't we do it plant-based? And then suddenly it starts appearing in glamorous magazines, and it infiltrates the culture. We don't want to just approach it from that level. We also want to approach it from, which we all do, people who are in very working class communities and in all across the spectrum. But you have found this focus, and I think it's really important because those are the trendsetters. Can you tell me a little bit about veganism and the clientele, for example, of the resorts that you create vegan menus for, which are very exclusive resorts? And I'm looking at a photo of you here. It says Dos Catrinas. Maybe you could explain that and how you're shifting the culture.
Sure, absolutely. Well, like you said, we're all doing our part. And this is my piece of the puzzle that I feel like I can fit in. I decided that I was going to work with hotels and resorts because I was really, before this, I was an actress. And I was really sick of traveling for work and staying at these amazing, beautiful places and having nothing for me to eat except for maybe a fruit plate or a bowl of oatmeal. And when you're spending that kind of money to stay at a place, that's basically the last thing that you want, is to be treated like a second-class citizen. Mm-hmm. So I started going to hotels and approaching them and asking and seeing if I could do this. And it was a real amazing that I was welcome into the Four Seasons. They're a wonderful, wonderful brand. And that's really what they're about, is making the experience perfect for everyone that walks on property. So it was a perfect fit. And I want to also say that I do more than just vegan at those properties. I do full dietary restricted menus. So if you have a peanut allergy, if you have a gluten intolerance, if you have if you're lactose intolerant, we have something for everyone. And it's all integrated into the menu, so you never have to feel like a second-class citizen. When you open that menu, you will see exactly what you can order, and you can order just like everyone else without having to make a big stink about it, without having to have the chef called out, without there being a 15-person discussion about what you can and can't eat on the menu. I'm sure you've experienced that before when you've gone to places, and it just kind of feels not great. And especially when you're traveling with people or you're with work colleagues, or, you never want to be that person that's causing the big fuss. And that's it, is that if we need to normalize veganism, we need to normalize plant-based dishes. And so that's what we do. And by integrating them into the menus, we find that it's just people ordering good food. It's not people ordering the vegan dishes necessarily. It's people that are ordering food that just looks and sounds really delicious. You saw Dos Catrinas pop up. That's one of our traditional Mexican restaurants on property. One of the most popular dishes is avocado baja tacos, because who doesn't want to eat fried avocado tacos on the beach in Mexico? I mean, whether you eat meat or not, everybody wants to eat that, right?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, that's looking really good right now. I would love to go down there, and I'm going to put that on my bucket list, that I'm going to that restaurant there at your resort in Mexico. And you mentioned this thing about creating a fuss. Yes, the penultimate example, I was at a fancy fresh restaurant many years ago, and I tried to order a vegan meal, and the outraged chef came out and threw vegetables on the table. And that was one of the raw vegetables, just, like, here, you want it? And that was probably the bottom. But now the attitudes of the chefs in these places, I've noticed, have changed. And as opposed to considering it a personal affront, a lot of them are really embracing it themselves. Do you see that shift? Because I've seen it now with galas. If I go to a gala, where I try not to go to galas that aren't plant-based, because every gala for any good cause should be plant-based right now, especially for environmental, world hunger, or any of those kinds of issues, or 100%. Workers' rights. We're seeing now a commonality between workers' rights and animal rights when you're talking about the slaughterhouses. I mean, not to gross anybody out, but then now they're making slaughterhouse workers wear diapers, adult diapers, because they shouldn't take breaks. I mean, there's something super morally wrong with our industrialized animal system. And it's not just exploiting animals, it's exploiting these poor people who have very little choice of what job they'll take. And now they're being told, you better go to work or you're out of a job, and then you have no legal recourses or anything, even if there's good evidence that you could be basically committing suicide by going to work because these places are infested with coronavirus. So for all of those reasons, there is now a commonality. If you're an environmentalist, if you're a progressive, if you care about workers' rights, human rights, world hunger, pollution, climate change, I mean, it's all together.
It is all together. And I have to say that chefs are being much more open to it today than they have ever been in the past. And so it's really just about education. It's about teaching different techniques, different ingredients, different brands that they're using, and just kind of making swaps and switches, adjusting things in the kitchen, and just, making minor tweaks, and teaching chefs how to compose a complete dish so that you don't end up with a plate of steamed in and roasted vegetables, because that's not really a meal. We do want a hearty, delicious meal, even though we're vegan.
And I want to say I'm so delighted. Jane Unchained has a show on Amazon Prime, New Day, New Chef.
Congratulations.
Let me take this banner off for a second so everybody can see New Day, New Chef on Amazon Prime. It's doing very well. We showcase incredible chefs. And I just want to show a couple of the folks. Take a look at these guys. Okay, wow. These guys are two of the people who appeared on New Day, New Chef, vegan bodybuilders. Look at those muscles. That's Ryan Nelson and Corinne Sutton. And Corinne is a veteran. He's the one with the vegan on his shirt, who stayed vegan even while he was serving our country. And nobody could say that these guys aren't the most fit. On top of that, we had Dotsie Bausch, who won an Olympic medal as a vegan cyclist. And she was the oldest to get on the stage to receive her Olympic medal. So we're showing that there is really no excuse. There's this idea that protein equates to meat. One of the things that I'd like to ask you about is this sort of false assumption that meat shortage equals a food shortage, which the meat manufacturers are trying to push now. And some of the mainstream media is sort of buying into that. Like, we have a food shortage because the meat slaughterhouses some of them are being shut down. And what's really, really tragic is they're quote unquote depopulating the animals, meaning killing them because they can't kill them in the slaughterhouses. It's really morally reprehensible. But getting back to this issue of equating, masculinity with meat, food shortages with meat shortages, it's almost like you'd have to really have willful blindness not to see that that's all nonsense now.
It really is all nonsense. There is no food shortage. I mean, when you go to the grocery store, the produce departments are packed. They're full. They're to the brim. It's springtime in California. The amount of produce is exploding off the shelves. There is so much to eat. It's not even funny. And you get a well-rounded diet, all from those plants. Everything that you need to survive, Mother Nature put inside a plant. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there, is that you can't stay healthy on a plant-based diet. Those guys were a perfect example of it, that you can. I mean, I stopped eating meat when I was 7 years old. Jane, you stopped eating meat a long time ago. I don't think any of us look like we're deficient in anything. But it is a matter of eating a well-rounded diet. It's about eating very colorful fruits and vegetables, and really experimenting and playing with all those 25,000 edible plants out there. And getting inspired and getting creative and really falling in love with how you feel when you eat plant-based, because we often don't talk about how amazing it feels to eat this way. I mean, I stopped when I was so young, so I didn't necessarily see the major shift, but it feels so good to eat whole food plant-based.
Guilt-free eating on so many levels. So last question. What is your vegan journey? How did you go plant-based at such a young age? What inspired that?
Well, I come from a very large beet eating family, most of which I'm sure are watching this right now. Hi, everybody. And I just didn't agree with it from a very, very young age. I just didn't want to eat meat. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then when I started processing like where it was coming from, my family told me that I was going to die if I didn't eat meat. And then finally at school, someone, when I was 7, said, "Oh, are you a vegetarian?" And I was like, "What's that?" I ran home. I was so excited because I was like, "Mom, Dad, there's people in the world that don't eat meat and they don't die." And I was like, "That's what I am." Obviously, I didn't even know what the word vegan was. And so I went as veganish as a 7-year-old could. I didn't eat eggs or drink milk, but I didn't know that ice cream was made from dairy. And my parents really didn't want me to make a big deal out of it. So as I got older and realized where things came from, I started eliminating more of them. But at 7 years old was when I was like, I will not eat any more animals.
Wow. I love that. And that's a very common story where kids, the second that they make the connection, say, no, I love animals. Why would I want to eat them? And out of the mouths of babes, as Jiminy Cricket said, let your conscience be your guide. If we got back to those basic values, I think most people would say, I love animals. Everybody we know loves their dogs and cats. We just need to expand that circle of compassion beyond those animals to all the other animals. So Leslie Durso, I want to thank you. I'm so excited that you're going to be participating in season 2 of New Day, New Chef. Thank you. And
I'm very excited.
Do you have any idea what you might come up with?
Yes, I believe we're going to make portobello zarandeado tacos, one of my specialties from Mexico.
Woo! I love that. Oh my gosh.
I love this marinade, and it's a really easy recipe and packed with flavor.
I love it. Thank you so much, Leslie Durso. You are an inspiration. You are changing the world. We love you. We appreciate you. Carry on.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for all that you're doing.
It's a team effort. See you next time.